welcome to the PFI Talks, a series of podcasts and video interviews with experts on Czech economy, organized by the Prague Finance Institute in cooperation with Serge EI. It's my pleasure to welcome Vice Governor of the Czech National Bank, Marek Mora. Hello.
Good morning.
The year 2020 has been about the pandemic crisis. But my question for you, which I'm actually asking all the participants in this series, is about what was the particular moment when you actually realized that the world or your life is not going to be what it was before the pandemic? What was the deciding moment?
I think the first moment when I realized that something goes wrong was when I listened to radio on Friday, 13 March, when the Czech government declared the state of emergency in the Czech Republic. Then I started thinking, wow, now there's something serious going on. On Saturday, I went to a shopping mall. I bought some stuff, to create some reserves.
So you were not unlucky. I mean, you were still able to get into the store.
Yes, it was actually quite easy. There were not so many people there. I was quite surprised. And then, by coincidence, I was asked to go to the session of the Czech government, which took place on Sunday, 15 March, where I represented the Czech National Bank on behalf of our governor, who could not be present. Normally, it is the governor who goes to these meetings, and there I realized what are the measures taken by the government to fight against the pandemic, and I realized that it is something quite serious, which will have an impact on our human lives, daily lives, on our economy, and I also realized that the situation in terms of health is quite serious.
Was there anything specific you had to actually take part or discuss at that Sunday meeting of the cabinet related to the Czech central bank?
The main reason why I was invited was because we had to clarify as the Czech National Bank some issues related to payments, mainly to China, for the health material which we were buying at that time from our Chinese colleagues. And the second reason was that I was asked to look at the measures which were taken by the government in the area of banks. We wanted that the banks do not get closed, which would have a serious impact on our economy.
So were there any discussions about actually even limiting access to banks?
No. It was just to avoid any misunderstanding. People should not consider a bank as a shopping mall, for instance. Bank has a different function. But there was no serious discussion. It was immediately understood by everyone, and it was actually quite easy.
Okay. Some people think that the changes that the COVID pandemic has brought are going to stay, something that we're actually may be able to get back to what was the pre-COVID normal. What's your take?
Well, I hope that the new normal will not be the situation at which we are living currently. Hopefully not. But it's quite clear that there will be some changes, and some of the changes will be quite long-lasting. I think the general beneficiaries of the whole situation will be companies which allow meetings on distance, basically information and communication services. On the other hand, the main losers will be those who rely on a close physical distance, which is, the whole area of hospitality, hotels, restaurants, cafes, transport companies, especially air transport, airports. I think these will suffer quite substantially. I personally think that one area which I know quite well, which is the so-called Congress tourism, where people meet, professionals meet globally in different places in the world, and they travel. I think this area will be affected quite heavily, because I think at least part of this business will be moved for a long time, and maybe forever, at least partly, to the virtual world.
Do you think it's going to really affect your way of working and communicating with your colleagues and meeting new colleagues in the sphere of monetary policies? Because when you actually are present at some, so to speak, offline congress, you can actually, even have a, informal, impromptu one-on-one meeting.
You are completely right. It's of course much better to meet in person, because there you can speak to people. You can meet new people. To meet new people is very difficult to do it in virtual world. I mean, you can meet someone new, but it's much better if you can talk to him, if you can exchange your views personally, because also if you are doing that virtually, you never know who else is listening to you. So all these things are more complicated, but and I think that at least partly we will get back to this situation. But I think partly it's quite likely that we will stay on these information and communication technological lines.
What is the key lesson you have learned from the COVID pandemic in terms of or concerning business or the economy or the way you function at the central bank?
Sorry, I don't now get.
What is the key lesson that the pandemic has taught you in terms of economy and how it should be managed going forward, or how you should go about your work at the central bank?
I get it. So the main lesson which I draw from this COVID experience is basically that we should get ready and we should become resilient. Get ready in terms of finance, and it affects individuals, households, companies, the state in terms of having low public debt, for instance, which allows you then in exceptional situations to jump in financially and help your households, your companies. But we should also be ready and resilient, I think, on our individual basis. We should be fit and we should be more resilient to all these potential possible shocks and viruses which will affect us in the future, and we should simply not break down if a new virus suddenly appears and we all go back to our homes, close down. This is not something which is natural. We should try to be more ready to take a risk and to stay and live normally as before.
Can the Czech economy and maybe even the economies of other countries in Europe and outside Europe handle the growing amount of fiscal debt that was brought about because of the measures taken to support pandemic hit economies around the world, including the Czech one?
Well, this is certainly a serious issue. I think in the short run, it makes sense that states get more indebted and in order to compensate the households and companies for the losses which they took with this COVID crisis. But of course, we have to be very vigilant in the long term. In the long term, all these debts are our common joint debts. They will have to be paid off by someone, and this someone will be no one else but us or our children, grandchildren, our future generations. And our future generations will also face other challenges, mainly related to the aging of population, which will then be reflected in the costs of our pension system, of our health system, etc. So in the long term, we should be very vigilant, and we should all these things which we are now doing in the short run to fight the COVID, we should compensate them later on and go back to sound fiscal finances, public finances.
Says Marek Mora, the Czech Central Bank Vice Governor. Thank you for visiting us.
Thank you for inviting me.